I bought the layout primarily because I liked it. I've always had an interest in the Great Eastern British Railways era, particularly fostered by Ian Rice and his earlier writings. I'd seen the layout at a exhibition and was captivated by it, how well it operated. The operation was such that I knew, buying it from the builder, Chris Matthewman, or from his estate rather, because sadly he's passed away, that I'd be getting a layout that was well built, reliable, and looked really good, which was important to me. The buildings on the layout are scratch built, super quick papers. The edges on them are really well defined, almost that you could shave yourself with them. All the mortar lines line up, they're subtly weathered. It's really an example of how to use brick papers. It is that sort of classic example. The layout came as per Chris operated it, which was late 1930s LNER, and it was all in grouping era, had LNER signage, horses and carts across it, lots of people. So the thing to change it into the Great Eastern 1950s era, the big thing was the signage, which is what I've changed, and you can see that reflected with the blue BR signage on it. A lot of the rest of it was pretty much left as is, apart from removing horse and carts and people in 1930s era clothing. The war years there was very little development, so the line and the branch infrastructure etc. pretty much would have stayed as per the 1930s right the way into the 1950s. Before then we started to get beaching and the effects of that, branch line closures etc. The changes I've made to the layout have been minimal. Partly because of that era, very little change. I didn't want to change anything of Chris's work to any great degree because it is such fine work. Maintenance, of course, with a layout like this is sometimes challenging. I've got one point motor that is causing me a bit of a problem, and because it's an old point motor I can't replace it with something conventional off the shelf. I have to repair either the original or find something and adapt it to make it work as the original does. I'm quite fortunate that with the skill set that I've got I can do some of that work, and I also know other people a little bit older than myself who are also familiar with the era and the style in which this layout was built. This was built late 1980s, but arguably with techniques from 1960s or so. Someone modelling well in the 1960s would recognise the control systems within this layout and how it functions. So some of it has been a bit of a learning curve, but again Chris's build quality is such that it's been exceptionally reliable. I've only had to have one point motor failure repaired. The operation of this, it's EM gauge, so any of the proprietary items have been re-gauged, particularly with replacement wheel sets, either Exacta Scale or Alan Gibson. Very little else has been done apart from detailing them. In terms of what operates on the layout, I've kept it very much as per Great Eastern British Railways era branch line equipment. So the DMUs are of the era, they're of the region as well, which is particular for me in helping set where the layout is. So you see a class 24 or a class 15, you know it's likely to be Eastern region 1950s. The 04, the black 04 shunter, again with the skirts on, classic Wisbeach and Upwell East Anglian branch line engine. So again that helps set the scene of where the layout's located and the era. Nominally I've named the layout Bawdsey. There was a radar station there from the Second World War where radar was developed. So the idea is that within Bawdsey, the Bawdsey Manor was a bit bigger than the actual small village that it is, and it actually deserved a railway line which came off the main line to Ipswich, and this represents the terminus of that branch in my imagination. I'd be very reticent about even buying a layout like this without seeing it work. Have a look at it, see that it works. Is there anything unusual about it? Is it, for example, this is if you like, a traditional historic type of wiring underneath. It's not DCC, it's DC. If I wanted to convert it to DCC, I imagine that could be an interesting challenge, not something that I'd be interested in. Again, the quality of the build of the layout, does it all fit together? This does, it goes together like a jigsaw, it almost falls together. So easy to put together, far easier, for example, than my own layout in Yard. The engineering quality of this is really, really superb. Longevity, again, the maintenance issues, is it contemporary stuff? If something goes wrong with it, do you have the skill set to fix it? Those are the sort of key issues in buying a layout. And I guess, is it safe? You know, you look underneath it, are there wires hanging off it? If it has a control system, you know, what sort of condition is that in? Common sense stuff. You wouldn't buy a car with wires hanging out of it, or just have a look. And again, if you haven't got the expertise, see if you can find someone else who can run an eye over it and give you that perhaps valuable second opinion. I was pretty certain I knew what I was buying, so I went and saw it by myself. But if you're not sure of that, then do try and find someone who can give you that second opinion.